So I have a story to share. I usually do on Sunday mornings. And it's in honor sort of our graffiti weekend celebration that we had complete with George Lucas. I saw the paper that was, hey, we're on the map now. People will say, well, we know Modesto, right? And it was just amazing. What an accomplishment to get him to be the Grand Marshal. I think they've been trying to get him to come home for years. And was Junior there? I can imagine. So here's my story. A hip young man with way more money than sense goes out and buys the hottest, fastest, most expensive car available, which is a
Maserati.
No, it's a Ferrari.
A what?
A Ferrari.
Oh, Ferrari.
And he takes it out for a spin. He stops at a light, and an old man on a moped pulls up next to him. And the old man looks over at the sleek car, and it's shiny and beautiful, and he says, "What kind of car you got there, sonny?" And the young man replies, "A brand new Ferrari. It cost $250,000. "Well, that's a lot of money," says the old man. "Why does it cost so much?" "Because it's the hottest, fastest car there is. It can do 320 miles per hour, states the young man with pride. "Mind if I look inside?" the moped driver says. "No problem," says the owner. So the old man leans into the window as far as he can, and he looks around. Then sitting back in his moped, he says, "That's a pretty slick car, all right." Just then, the light changes. So the young man decides to show this old man just what his car can do. He floors it, and within 30 seconds, the speedometer reads 160 miles per hour. And suddenly, he notices a dot in the rear view mirror, right? And it seems to be getting closer. It seems to be getting closer and closer, and then suddenly, whoosh, something whips by him going much faster. And what on earth could be going faster than my Ferrari, thinks this young man. And then ahead of him, he sees a small dot, and he realizing it's coming straight back for him. And whoosh, it goes by him again, heading in the opposite direction. And it looks like the old man on the moped. Couldn't be, thinks the guy. How could the moped outrun a Ferrari? But then again, he sees the dot in his rear view mirror. Whoosh! Kabam! It plows into the back of the car, demolishing the rear end. The young man jumps out of the car, and he sees that it is the old man. He runs out to him, and he's lying on the concrete, and he says, "Oh dear, oh my, is there anything I can do for you?" And the old man wheezes, "Young feller, you could unhook my suspenders from your side view mirror." So today we're going to continue our exploration of It's All Good in the Neighborhood. And we're going to do that by looking at the idea of the wind against your face, like that old man was experiencing, I'm sure. So the wind against your face. And sometimes in life, we can feel just like that old man on the moped, can't we? When things are changing so fast and we feel like our suspenders are hooked to something that's just dragging us as fast as we can, and we're getting bounced back and forth. And I know that a couple months ago, we spent an entire month looking at change, but it's such an important topic in today's world that I really wanted to talk about it a little bit more today. And look at it as an affirmation and a confirmation and a reiteration of how to approach it when it approaches us. But before we delve into our ideas today, I want to give you a little heads up how things have changed in our world. And I think mostly for the good, don't you think? And I came upon something when I was reading this that really just was amazing, and I'm going to hopefully find it. I didn't mark it, and I thought, I'll remember where that is. Have you ever done that?
No.
No.
That's why I dog ear on the pages.
Yeah, I know. Well, basically, what he was talking about, and if you take this, maybe it's earlier in, he talks about how the earth has grown. How we started out and how we had a billion people, and then in 20 years it doubled, and then it quickly, exponentially, it just got to be where we are now, 7 billion people, and it just is growing at a faster rate. And that's really, I'm talking today about how we are really growing consciously as well as physically, and evolution and awareness and all of that. So, but here are some of the the things that we've come from in the past. Did you know that in the 1500s that June was established as the month that most people got married? And why, you ask? Why did most people get married in June? Does anybody remember or know this idea? I know, because I told this yesterday, and because I think all of us were hoping we could jump in a swimming pool. But it's because they took their yearly baths in May. And by June, they still smelled pretty good. But they were starting to maybe not smell so good. So the brides carried a bouquet of flowers to mask the smell. Okay? They didn't have deodorant back then. And I got to tell you, there was a lot of that going around yesterday. That was for sure. But let's talk about the baths. How was it that they did this in May, right? They'd get a big tub and they'd fill it with hot water. And, of course, it was the man of the house who had the privilege of the first bath, followed by all of the boys, right? Then the women and the children, and finally, at the very end, the babies. They were the last to be bathed. And by then, the water was so dirty that you could actually lose someone in it, hence the saying, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. There you go. So let's move forward 400 years. So then we're in the year 1900. Only 14% of the homes in the United States had a bathtub. It's an improvement from the 1500s when people took a bath only once a year, but still not to where we are today. Only 8% of the homes had a telephone. A 3-minute call from Denver to New York cost $11. And you're thinking, well, okay, that's not so bad, except the average worker then earned roughly $250 a year. So that was more than half a month's salary. You weren't making many calls to New York. Only 10% of all U.S. physicians had a college education. Wow. Plutonium, insulin, and antibiotics had not been discovered yet. Scotch tape, crossword puzzles, canned beer, and iced tea had not yet been invented. And if you look at the beginning of our evolution to our early modern human ancestors, some 115,000 years ago, it's easy to see that our evolution, consciously, intellectually, and technologically, is accelerating at a faster and faster pace. And I think I have a slide here, which kind of shows a little something here. Consider these 10 inventions that have literally changed our world, and how many of them have come about in the last 100 years. You know, we've got the plow, the wheel, the printing press, refrigeration, we've got telephones, we've got radios, television, steam engines, automobiles, light bulbs, computer, and finally the internet. It's amazing. And look how long it took us to get where we are. And in relation to how fast we're going now, didn't it seem like it took a long time to get to a certain point and then just took off? And that's happening. That's what we're talking about. So today we're going to look at what it really means when the winds of change are hitting us in the face. What does it really mean for us to feel like that old man on the moped? Ralph Marston once said, the faster you move forward, the more the wind blows against your face. When you encounter much difficulty and resistance, it is because you're in the process of making significant progress and change. Those who have no problems are those who never venture out to accomplish anything. Those who face the most challenges are those who end up creating the most value. When a particular problem arises, it's because you've progressed to the point where you can deal with it. When a challenge comes along, that's because you're truly ready for where it can bring you. See the obstacles as gateways, and you'll see their true value. Each new challenge is a stepping stone, a waypoint on the journey to a real and meaningful accomplishment. So feel the stiff wind as it blows against your face, and know that what you're feeling is your rapid movement forward. And there's a secular description of what's going on, or that's the secular description of what's going on. Here's the more spiritual one from the Science of Mind textbook. In the immortality chapter, Ernest Holmes tells us, nature will not let us stay in any one place too long. She will let us stay just long enough to gather the experience necessary to the unfolding and advancement of the soul. Nature demands that the change in order that we may advance. When the change comes, we should welcome it with a smile on the lips and a song in the heart. How many of us do that when we're talking about big change that's coming on? Oh, okay, this is good, right? Despite these encouraging words, the wind of change in our face, it just doesn't always feel good, does it? I love Michael Beckwith's great chicken egg metaphor. It's not the age-old question in which came first. Rather, for a while, the chick is growing comfortably in its egg, right? It's developing and it's maturing at a comfortable pace. Then it begins to get a little too big, right? It's a little too tight, a little uncomfortable. And pretty soon the shell is more than too tight and more than uncomfortable. And the little chick begins to pollute its own environment and the egg seems just intolerable. So this chick is in major distress. And just at the moment when he thinks it's going to die, the environment is totally polluted, something inside it tells it to peck on the outside. So it begins to peck at the shell, and it begins to break through the shell, and an entire new world that this chick never even knew existed is revealed. And that world was there all along, wasn't it? But the chicken is just seeing it for the first time. Eric Butterworth says pain is breaking through the shell of awareness. And Edwin Gaines, who we absolutely adore, said not all of our good tastes like chocolate and smells like turkey and dressing. Darn. Because we know that that's good, right? But sometimes our good doesn't quite look like that. But when we ground ourselves in the awareness that the quote from Ralph Marston and Ernest Holmes, what they suggest, then we can take a different perspective on this wind, against our face kind of idea. It says in Romans 8:28, and we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are called according to his purpose. And the key word here is together. All things work together for our good. So even the separate little things that we're going, oh, that's not really all that good. Yeah, well, we don't know. It is working towards our good. There's an overused statement that I hear all the time. It's all good. But it is. And sometimes it just takes a little patience to see it. And sometimes our insight does not render us capable of judging current happenings as to whether they are good or not good. We tend to pick out things that strike us wrong as isolated, unreasonable happenings, but things work together to formulate a pattern and ultimately create a beneficial situation. At the time they happen, it's hard to see any cosmic pattern forming, yet pieced together and evolving these things may have a tremendous result which we could hardly foresee at the beginning or even imagine. A beautifully illustrated story is in Genesis, and it's the story, and I know many of you have heard this, the story of Joseph and his brothers who sold him into slavery because they were jealous of his father's love for him. Through a series of events, Joseph becomes the right hand of the Pharaoh. Do anybody remember this? I think it was told in the book The Red Tent. This is a great story. A famine came upon the land, and his brothers came to Egypt for grain. And the story in the Bible tells us that his brothers fell down before his face, and they said, "Behold, we are your servants." And Joseph said to them, "Do not be afraid, for am I in the place of God? But as for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good, in order to bring it about as this day, to save many people. Now therefore, do not be afraid, I will provide for you and your little ones." And that's just a beautiful turn, how that happened, He could have been resentful. He could have said, yeah, now it's my turn to get you. But he didn't. He said, God saw this for good. And now, when we return evil with good, it changes, breaks the cycle. It breaks it. I know that this is the hardest thing, especially with children. I remember Polly was telling me that her sons, they take turns mowing the lawn. And she knew that her older son was very busy, with his studying for finals. And so she said, why don't you, to her younger one, why don't you just go mow the lawn? Well, why should I? It's not my turn. Just do it. Just do it. Well, I don't think that somebody needs to take that first step. It may not be your turn, but somebody has to make that first step. And he did. And his brother was so grateful that in turn, I think later on he did something nice for his younger brother. He did the dishes or something. But it's hard to break that cycle, because when you keep count and you keep tally, you don't want to let go of that. So you'll never be called on to make a change unless you are ready to make that change. Now, isn't that a scary thought? Because I know I've been called on to make a lot of changes that I didn't feel I was ready to make. But once you're in the middle of it, you go, okay, maybe it wasn't that hard. So that is something to remember. You will not be called on to make a change unless you're ready to make that change. Or as my first minister, Dr. Don McCart, said, and he was the minister in Whittier, he told me, the universe will never give you more than you are capable of handling. Wow, that was when I went to see him. I was 8 months pregnant and my job just evaporated. What? We were looking for a house to buy. Now I didn't have a job and a new baby coming. Hello? What a great gift. I got to stay home with my little girl for 8 months before I found a different job somewhere else, because we were supposed to move and find another place to live, and he had another job, but I didn't know any of that. But it was all unfolding, so it all worked out really well. Of course, Mother Teresa added, to that adage, I wish he didn't trust me so much. God will never give you more than you can handle. I wish he didn't trust me so much. She handled a lot. Let us not listen to the fears that want to crowd into our minds, but let us listen to the spirit within that tells us that we're capable of doing whatever is needed. Let us remember that wherever we are, God is. Right where we're standing, God is, and God is good. So wherever we are, so is the divine flow of life, so is the divine flow of creativity. You have an inner higher self that's capable of meeting any situation, and it's important that we remember to turn within to seek guidance and solace. Listen to the voice of intuition and refuse to let fear devour you. This is our great problem in the most instances when change is imminent. We let ourselves become enveloped in fear. We're so concerned that, we're losing control, that we don't know how things are going to turn out. Think for a moment how much fear you would be in if you did not know the end result of the birthing process. Question: a pregnant woman says to her aunt, my childbirth instructor says it's not pain I'll feel during labor, but pressure. Is she right? And the answer comes, yes, in the same way that a tornado might be called an air current. So, you don't know. You don't know, but that's where the trust comes. In every person's life, there have been instances which seemed completely hopeless and shattering, and at the time it takes a lot of perception and patience to see the good that appears to be useless, negative, or even forbidding and ugly. To see good in that takes a lot of persistence. It's not always easy. It's like the old story of, the kid who's cleaning out the horse stall. It's filled up to here and happy about it, right? And he says, there's got to be a pony in here somewhere. You're looking for the good, even though you're shoveling the stuff that doesn't look so good. Take time to appreciate the universe, the larger system that remains intact. And boy, does this really hit on that. No matter how chaotic it may seem in temporary systems and societies, that's just an illusion, just a short moment. We live in a spiritual universe that is governed by spiritual law and intelligence. And in the final analysis, it's only the intangible something that we call God, the good that remains unchanged in and through all things. All else is transitory, changing, growing, progressing. All else comes to pass as we continue on the spiraling pathway towards the realization of our own God potential. No matter how real or frightening the situation may be, it's still a transitory thing. It's not forever. Only the good is real and lasting. Look back in your life and recall the times when you were frantic over a certain crisis, when you were bogged down in some grievous misfortune. Oh, that was just recent when we got our tax bill. Ooh, we got through that. And it really seemed to be the end of everything. Where is that challenge now? It's not there, is it? Where are the people who are standing in the way of your good? Where are the circumstances that seem to have you hemmed in? Where are those burdens that seemed beyond endurance? None of them came to stay. Remember the saying, this too shall pass. Don't get hung up on the story. Some people, they love their drama. They love their story so much that they'll come and they'll tell you and they'll tell you and they'll tell you and then they'll, then wait a minute, you're not responding to it, so they'll find new people to tell it, because every time they relive it, it's like Rich has a tape of a racehorse winning a race that we actually owned a small share of years and years ago. And every time he watches that tape on, it's a videotape, he thinks he's won the race again. So that's what these people think.
Money.
Yeah. And so these people they think they're doing the race again. And why? That race is over. We've already spent that money. It's gone. Actually, the horse probably spent it, but ate it. Those horses are expensive to maintain. We had just the tail end of the horse, much. But that was something. It's a sport of kings, that's for sure. So there's no reason to keep reliving something like that. It's gone. It's done. Don't get hung up in the story. Sit back and wait for a deeper meaning, and it will be revealed. It will. Your assignment for this week: if the wind of change is chafing your face lately, I want you to commit to not telling that story for the whole week. Not tell the story for a whole week. If there's something that's just going on, let it go. Do not tell it to a single soul, and refuse to tell it to yourself either. Don't even run it through your mind. And invite forth the answer to this question: what greater understanding, what higher level of consciousness, what deeper awareness of the law's operation in my life is this experience offering me? Joseph Campbell wrote, opportunities to find deeper powers within ourselves come when life seems most challenging. I know that has been the truth for me. Has that been the truth for anyone else? Has anyone else experienced that? So when the wind of change is against your face, remember the words of Ernest Holmes. The spirit of the universe cannot change, being all. There is nothing for it to change into. But the body of the universe, which is what we are, cannot help changing. This is what constitutes the eternal activity of spirit itself, the spirit passing into form, creation eternally going on. Remember that creation is eternally going on and that you are eternally evolving. Remember that nature will never let you stay in one place. It'll let you stay in that one place just long enough to gather the experience necessary for unfolding the advancement of your soul. And I'm not necessarily talking about a physical place, just the place where you are in your spiritual evolution. I know for me, every time I think I've got something figured out, a new idea comes in, or I'll start reading this book and go, whoa, wait, that's challenging something I thought I had figured out. There's always more, and that's the part of the spiral evolution upward. Remember that nature demands the change in order that you may advance. Believe me, I know that eternal activity of creation, that ongoing activity of the evolution of our soul, it can seem very frightening. And it can be very chaotic, right? But remember these profound words of an Oriental master. Before brilliance, chaos. It's kind of like, what was it, Ken Wilber? No, it's Ken, I'm forgetting his name now. But yes, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. Yeah. So before brilliance, chaos. You are each a brilliant light of God. You are each a divine God spark. I love that image, where God sparks. Don't allow the wind against your face to keep that from growing brighter and brighter every moment. Instead, know that it's simply a natural part of the process. And so it is. Namaste.